The crowd didn't just cheer, they erupted. Phones shot into the air, screams tore through the night, and for a moment, you could feel the energy of a cultural earthquake shaking the entire arena. On one side of the stage, Kendrick Lamar stood frozen, mic still in his hand. Eyes locked on the chaos he had just unleashed. On the other, SZA, grinning like she knew exactly what she had done. Let the last note hang in the air before turning to the crowd with that "yeah. We just did that" look. And who were the targets? It's none other than Nicki Minaj and Drake. But this wasn't a subtle jab or a playful wink. This was an all-out public execution, done live, in front of tens of thousands, with millions more. Watching in real time through live streams, the verses, brutal. The shade, surgical. And the audience, losing their minds from the very first line. You knew this was personal. Every lyric felt like a dagger aimed at the heart of hip-hop's so-called royalty, and the crowd could feel the blood in the water. But what nobody expected was the final blow. SZA delivered one so raw, so direct, it left even Kendrick stunned. And that's just the beginning. Because the fallout from this night has only just begun. To really understand just how explosive this moment was, you need to know the history simmering beneath it. Because Kendrick Lamar and SZA didn't just step on that stage to perform, they stepped into a decades-long battlefield of egos, alliances, and backroom betrayals that's been shaping hip-hop royalty for years. Let's start with Kendrick. The Compton lyricist has always been a sniper in the rap game, quiet, calculated, and deadly when he finally decides to take a shot. While Drake and Nicki have thrived on visibility and dominance in the charts, Kendrick's weapon has always been precision. When he calls out a name, it's not an accident. It's a hit list. And if you've been paying attention, the tension between him and Drake has been quietly building since their brief collaboration days. Rumors of ghostwriting digs, label politics, and sly interviews have all added fuel to the fire. And then there's SZA. Don't be fooled by the soft vocals and ethereal presence. SZA has been storing receipts like a vault. Behind the scenes, she's been brushed off, overlooked, and if whispers are to be believed, actively blackballed from certain collaborations by none other than Nicki herself. Industry insiders have whispered about an awards show green room years ago where SZA was allegedly iced out of a conversation by Nicki and her entourage. SZA never spoke publicly about it. Until now, fast forward to this tour. Fans already knew the pairing of Kendrick and SZA was dangerous, a blend of lyrical sharpness and soulful venom. But no one could have predicted they'd use this particular night to wage war on two of the most powerful names in music. And it wasn't just the lyrics, it was the delivery. Every pause, every smirk, every glance to the side of the stage carried weight. Kendrick's first verse allegedly included a thinly veiled jab about crowns bought with streams, not bars, which had sections of the crowd immediately chanting, "Drake, Drake, Drake." But here's where it gets wild. In the middle of the set, Kendrick stepped back, gestured to SZA, and the lights shifted. What she sang next wasn't even subtle. It was a direct hit, naming queens who play pretend while stabbing sisters in the back, and even weaving in a reference to superbass in a way that felt far from a tribute. The audience went from screaming in excitement to gasping in disbelief, realizing they were witnessing something that would set the internet ablaze before the night was over. By the time the performance ended, social media was already in overdrive. Clips were going viral before the lights even came up. Fan captions read like live battle reports. Kendrick just bodied Drake on stage and didn't even blink. SZA just ethered Nicki without saying her name once. This is art. But what? The audience didn't know, and what would come spilling out over the next 24 hours was that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Sources close to the production claimed that Kendrick and SZA had been planning this set for weeks. And according to one insider, there was even a rehearsal where a stagehand overheard Kendrick mutter, "It's time to end the fake rain." And if that's true, then this wasn't just about music. It was about power. It was about who gets to shape the narrative in hip-hop. And it was about who finally has the guts to go toe-to with two of the biggest forces in the game. What's even crazier? The performance you saw on stage wasn't the full story. There's a hidden part of this drama, a backstage encounter before the show that almost blew this whole thing up before it could happen. And it involved a face-to-face confrontation that's already being described by crew members as tense. Enough to stop the show. And that confrontation. Oh, it changes everything. Backstage, less than an hour before the now infamous performance. The atmosphere was already thick enough to cut with a knife. Crew members were whispering about an unexpected visitor. And sure enough, security cameras caught a very familiar entourage slipping into a restricted hallway. One that led straight to Kendrick and SZA's green room, according to two separate production staffers. This wasn't just any pop-in. Word is, Nicki Minaj, personal assistant, and a pair of OVO-affiliated reps, the kind who never show up without a reason, walked in unannounced. They weren't smiling, they weren't chatting, and the moment the door closed, voices started rising. No phones were allowed inside, but one stagehand claims they heard Kendrick say, "You don't get to control this show." Another swears SZA's tone was ice cold when she told them, "You can't silence what's already in motion." That's true, then this wasn't just an innocent visit. It was an attempt at damage control before the damage had even been done. The theory. Someone in Nicki or Drake's inner circle had gotten wind of what Kendrick and SZA were about to unleash. Whether it was a leaked rehearsal snippet or an overheard conversation, they knew shots were coming and were desperate to stop it before it went live. But here's the kicker. Not only did the visit fail to stop anything, it might have fueled the fire. Crew members say that after the visitors left, Kendrick looked at SZA and said, "Now we go harder." And if you watch the footage closely, there's a new intensity in their eyes during that performance. Like they weren't just performing. For the crowd, they were delivering a message to the people who tried to shut them down minutes earlier. The actual on-stage shots. Ruthless. Kendrick's verse went from subtle shade to naming exact situations that Drake fans couldn't ignore, a sly reference to running playlists. Not marathons, a clear nod to Drake's streaming dominance, and a line about features for favors. That had fans dissecting his collabs for hidden meaning. Meanwhile, SZA layered her honeyed vocals with daggers. One lyric about Barbie dreams turning into Queen nightmares set the crowd OFF, with chants and gasps mixing into a storm of noise. Social media exploded instantly. Twitter threads popped up with slow-motion clips, pointing out every smirk, every side eye, every moment that seemed to be aimed at Nicki or Drake. TikTok edits had already racked up millions of views before the set was even over. Fans on Reddit began piecing together timelines of past shade between the four artists, making the case that this confrontation had been years in the making. And then came the first real twist, a leaked backstage photo, posted to The recording, if authentic, painted a picture far darker than a spur-of-the-moment on-stage diss. This was deliberate, calculated. One voice, allegedly Kendrick, talked about shutting down the empire and making sure no one in pink, wigs or owl chains ever feels safe again. The other, allegedly SZA, responded with a chilling, almost playful, "Let's see how they survive this winter." Within hours, #PinkWigWinter was trending, and Nicki's barbs were already at war with Kendrick's and SZA's fan bases. Drake's OVO supporters piled on, digging up every old interview, Instagram Live, and podcast moment they could find to frame this as a coordinated takedown. Then came the real escalation. A high-definition video surfaced from a completely different source. This wasn't just fan speculation. This was security footage from a backstage hallway, time-stamped exactly 17 minutes before Kendrick and SZA's set. The video showed a tall figure in a hoodie matching Kendrick's fit that night and a woman with long, wavy hair matching SZA's. Nace talking to a man widely believed to be a former ROC Nation executive. The conversation couldn't be heard, but lip readers jumped on it instantly. Their interpretation: Kendrick allegedly mouthed the words, "She'll never come back from this," while SZA smiled and said, "It's already done." Now the narrative was shifting into dangerous territory. This wasn't just petty competition or music industry banter anymore. Fans and insiders were calling it career sabotage. Rumors began swirling that certain venues were being pressured not to book Nicki in the upcoming year, and that one of Drake's yet-to-be-announced festival headlining slots was suddenly under review. The internet split into two camps. One saw Kendrick and SZA as brilliant strategists, finally toppling two artists who dominated for too long. The other saw them as snakes, orchestrating a takedown that went beyond music and into personal livelihoods. But here's the part that made even seasoned industry watchers go quiet. An alleged leaked group chat screenshot between three major label A&Rs. In it, one participant wrote, "If this plays out like planned, they'll have no choice but to pull the deal." The others responded with emojis, one a coffin, one a flame. Was it authentic? It's impossible to prove. But in a week where every leak seemed to confirm the last, the public wasn't waiting for fact checks. By the time midnight hit, the hashtags had evolved. Hashtag stage execution, hashtag mic burial. And the most viral of them all, hashtag goodbye bar, BZ, and boy. And then, as if the night hadn't already gone nuclear, a live moment took everything over the edge. Nicki Minaj herself appeared on Instagram Live. Her face deadly calm, sipping wine as she said only 4 words. They started a war. The live ended there. No explanations, no denials, no laughter. Just that, and that's when it became clear. This wasn't going to be contained to one performance or a couple days of Twitter drama. This was the opening shot in a conflict that time was about to rewrite the power map of hip-hop and possibly destroy some of its biggest names in the process. But even with all this fire, the most shocking reveal of the night was still to come, one that would blindside fans, flip the villain-hero narrative on its head, and make everyone question who had really been pulling the strings all along. By the next morning, hip-hop Twitter had turned into a digital battleground. The trending list was nothing but war banners. Hashtag goodbye BZ and boy. Hashtag mic burial. Hashtag stage execution. And even the petty but viral hashtag owl, down, a direct shot at Drake's OVO branding. Memes flooded timelines. Kendrick and SZA edited into medieval paintings as executioners. Drake's owl logo lying in a coffin, and Nicki's Pink Friday album cover photoshopped into a pink funeral parody. But the reaction wasn't just from fans. Major figures in the music industry were choosing sides. Meek Mill, who famously clashed with Drake in the past, dropped a cryptic tweet. Funny how tables turn and burn. Cardi B liked and then quickly unliked a post praising SZA's fearless performance. Rap blogs went into overdrive, each claiming they had exclusive insider leaks that the mainstream outlets were too scared to print. The Barbs weren't taking the humiliation lying down. They launched their own counteroffensive, digging through old interviews where Kendrick praised Nicki, claiming he was a hypocrite. They accused SZA of biting the hand that fed her, resurfacing past collaborations with Drake to frame her. as disloyal. Some fans even began diming venue owners, urging them to drop Kendrick and SZA from upcoming shows in organized backlash, designed to hit them where it hurt most: tour revenue. The OVO camp went quiet. Too quiet. Drake posted nothing. No IG stories, no cryptic captions, just silence, the kind that makes fans think something big is brewing behind the scenes. And then TMZ dropped their own grenade, an exclusive source claiming Drake had already recorded a rebuttal track aimed squarely at Kendrick and SZA, set to release when the timing is perfect. Meanwhile, industry executives started whispering about the political fallout. A high-ranking figure at a major streaming platform allegedly sent a private Slack message saying, "We can't let this war tank the charts. We might have to manipulate the algorithm to keep them all visible." Whether true or not, the idea of chart manipulation became its own subdrama, fueling conspiracy threads on Reddit about the industry's hidden hand in controlling who stays relevant. Late-night talk shows couldn't resist. One host cracked, "Kendrick and SZA destroyed Drake and Nicki so bad, even ChatGPT refused to write their next verses." The audience laughed, but the undertone was clear. This was no longer just a music story. It was mainstream news, woven into pop culture's fabric. Then came the live reaction that broke the internet. During her own show in Paris, Nicki stopped mid-performance, looked directly into the crowd, and said, "Tell them I said. Thank you for the motivation." She then launched into an unreleased verse packed with veiled threats, rapid-fire punchlines, and bars that fans insisted were aimed straight at Kendrick's reputation and SZA's personal life. The crowd went wild. Clips of that moment racked up millions of views within hours. The war of words had officially gone global, and every fan on every continent had an opinion. But perhaps the most dangerous ripple effect was happening off-stage. Insiders claimed certain brands were reconsidering endorsement deals, worried about being caught in the crossfire. A leaked email from a luxury fashion house allegedly showed their PR team debating whether to pull Kendrick from an upcoming campaign to avoid alienating Nicki's massive fanbase. And just when the internet thought things couldn't get any more chaotic, a mystery account popped up on Twitter, dropping unreleased snippets that supposedly showed even more direct attacks from the Barcelona performance verses that hadn't been audible in the live stream. Were they real? Were they deepfakes? Nobody knew, but they sounded too perfect to ignore, and fans ran with them as gospel truth. The reactions weren't just split, they were violently polarized. One side framed Kendrick and SZA as the heroes. Hip-hop needed, tearing down an outdated hierarchy. The other side saw them as ruthless opportunists trying to erase legends. And both sides agreed on one thing: this wasn't ending anytime soon. Because, as one viral tweet so perfectly put it, this isn't just rap beef anymore. This is a chess game. And someone's about to lose their queen. And in that single metaphor, the stage was set for the next most dangerous move yet. Just when the dust almost seemed ready to settle, a shadowy leak ripped the lid right back off this war. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a private Dropbox link began circulating in underground hip-hop Discord servers. The file, a studio-quality recording from the same night Kendrick and SZA performed in Barcelona, but this version was different. Entire verses that had been drowned out by crowd noise in the live stream were suddenly crystal clear. And they weren't just jabs. They were nuclear strikes. In Kendrick's unreleased bars, he directly named Drake's ghostwriters, accused him of selling emotion like perfume. SZA's part. Even colder. She allegedly referenced Nicki's husband's legal troubles, something fans knew would light a firestorm. The audacity was staggering, and within minutes, snippets were being reposted across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram like wildfire. The music industry woke up to chaos. Some claimed the leak was planned by Kendrick's camp to maximize humiliation. Others swore it was an inside job by a disgruntled sound engineer looking for a payday. But the most shocking theory came from a verified producer on Twitter who said, "Don't get it twisted. This ain't the whole thing. There's a second verse you haven't even heard yet." And that's when things got even darker. An anonymous Instagram account with 0 followers posted a single photo, a hard drive labeled Stage War Vol. 2. The caption, "Release date coming. They won't survive this." Fans instantly went into detective mode, zooming into the image, analyzing reflections, and cross-referencing past backstage photos to figure out whose hands were holding the drive. Meanwhile, whispers started circulating about industry retaliation. Rumors suggested Nicki's team was in talks with 2 heavyweight male rappers, names big enough to flip the narrative, to drop a response track that would end Kendrick's clean image forever. Drake, still silent, was spotted in a Toronto studio with at least 3 producers known for crafting diss tracks. The tension wasn't just in the music world. Brands began pulling subtle moves. A major festival quietly updated its lineup poster, moving Kendrick's name below another headliner. SZA's scheduled fashion collaboration paused production with no public explanation. These micro moves were interpreted as quiet punishments from the industry elite, siding with Drake and Nicki in the shadows. And then, a private voice note supposedly from Kendrick himself surfaced. In it, he could be heard laughing before saying, "Oh, they think I'm done?" That was the opening act. Whether it was authentic or a convincing deepfake didn't matter. The psychological warfare had been reignited. By the end of the week, fans had shifted from asking who won to who's still standing. The lines between artistry, ego, and survival were blurring fast. This wasn't a rap beef anymore. It was a cultural event spiraling into something bigger, something that could reshape alliances in hip-hop for years to come. And as one anonymous insider chillingly put it to a blog, what's coming next isn't just about lyrics, it's about careers. And some people aren't gonna make it to 2026. The war drums are still beating. The question is, who's brave enough to answer the next call? Because trust me, the next move will make this Barcelona night look like child's play. And now, here we are, standing on the edge of what could become the most explosive chapter in hip-hop history. What started as a surprise onstage moment in Barcelona has now snowballed into a full-scale lyrical war with no rules, no boundaries, and no sign of stopping. Kendrick and SZA didn't just send a message to Nicki and Drake. They fired the first shots in what fans are calling the new hip-hop civil war. But the real question is, where do you stand? Are you riding with Kendrick and SZA, believing this is the raw, unapologetic truth hip-hop has been missing? Or are you siding with Nicki and Drake, thinking this was a calculated clout stunt gone too far? Drop your take in the comments because the fan debate online is already vicious. And don't forget that leaked track we talked about. That might just be part 1. If the whispers are true, there's another, even more brutal verse locked away on that Stage War Vol to drive. If it drops, we could see careers crumble overnight. So hit that like button if you want to see every single leak, every insider DM, and every secret studio recording before the mainstream media even knows what's happening. Subscribe and turn on all notifications, because when the next verse hits, you won't have time to catch up. You'll want to be the first to hear it. And trust me, the next move could drop any second. One wrong word, one leaked screenshot, one live slip-up, and this whole game changes again. The only guarantee, what's coming will make this look tame. Stay locked in. This war is just getting started.